Hi guys, we continue with our series Hum Hai Na, and today I am addressing allocation of expenses and incomes. Well, when I was discussing going concern concept, I said that when I start the business, we make an assumption that the business will last forever, business will have a very long life. Now, if your business is going to have a longer life, there will be certain expenses which will give you benefit also over a period of longer time. And there will be certain expenses that you will be incurring where you will get benefit only to the extent of 12 months. That is where, in principle, we divide the expenditure into two parts, something called capital expenditure and something called revenue expenditure. So, what is capital expenditure? Capital expenditure is an expenditure which you have incurred in the current year, but we are not going to get the benefit only in just 1 year, but we will get the benefit over a period of time, and that depends upon the cost of the fixed asset. Cost of the fixed asset is the capital expenditure. So it depends upon what life of the asset. If the expected life is 10 years, you will get the benefit of using that machine over a period of 10 years. 20 years for 20 years. Acha, is this expenditure incurred in acquiring, installing, uh, repairing before using it for the first time? Yes. It is basically nothing but a cost of the asset, boss. That is purchase price of the asset plus all the expenses incurred before using the asset for the first time. That all will be added to the cost of the asset. And that all will not give you benefit in just 1 year, but over a period of time. That's why these are capital expenditure. 100% this is heavy and this is not recurring, but this is supposed to be non. Hello. Apart from we spending the amount to acquire the asset, install the asset, you have to also understand any expenditure incurred due to which life of the asset is increasing as well as productivity, yeah, productive capacity is increasing. Still, that expenditure might be in the nature of repairs expenditure. It will be treated as capital expenditure. प्रोडक्शन बढ़ा रहा है, एसेट के लाइफ को बढ़ा रहा है, तो भले वो हेवी रिपेयर्स हो, ओवरऑलिंग हो, it will be treated as capital expenditure and will always appear in balance sheet asset side on which every year we will be charging depreciation. Revenue expenditure. Well, these are my day-to-day routine expenses. Uh, they are absolutely recurring in nature. They are my day-to-day routine expenses. बोला तो recurring ही होगा ना. And the expenditure is incurred, and we will get the benefit. We will enjoy the benefit also only to the extent of 12 months. Correct? When I say certain day-to-day expenses and they are recurring in nature, you better understand salary, your wages, rent, conveyance, traveling expenses, electricity bill, other administration charges, so are very much revenue in nature. However, there are certain non-recurring items also, non-recurring expenses also, which will be treated as revenue because the benefit is not for more than 1 year. So, ऐसे कैसे? Yeah, you are paying compensation to workers in a particular year. Then there is some repairs and maintenance which is not carried out every year, but all of a sudden some, AC machine conk off and you have to pay repair charges. Compensation paid for breach of contract. Breach means to break the contract. हमने किसी के साथ contract, an agreement enforceable by law is what you've done in your law. So an agreement enforceable by law, so you have entered into contract. So contract में conditions were mentioned, and those conditions are broken from your side. So it's a breach of contract, right? Uh, you have to pay compensation. So that compensation that you're paying is not at all recurring in nature. It's a non-recurring in nature, but still it will be treated as recurring. No, it is non-recurring, but still it will be treated as revenue expenditure because it has got nothing to do with any long-term benefit. सर आपने बोला कि रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर होगा तो वो डे टू डे होना चाहिए, वो रूटीन एक्सपेंस होना चाहिए. यस, बट एक्सेप्शनल केसेस आर देयर. Certain non-recurring expenses which will not give you benefit over a period of time, and basically those expenses are not incurred which will contribute towards cost of the asset, are also treated as revenue expenses. Am I very clear now? Of course, while preparing final accounts, revenue expenses will be either debited to trading account or profit and loss account. We pass closing entries at the end of the year. We close all nominal accounts and we transfer them to trading and profit and loss account for the year, because these expenses are for the year, for that is up to 12 months. अब जो तीसरा पार्ट है ना, डिफर्ड रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर नोन एज फिक्टिशियस एसेट्स, वो थोड़ा टेक्निकल है. टेक्निकल इन द सेंस आपको समझना पड़ेगा कि ये जो एक्सपेंसेस है ये रेवेन्यू नहीं है, बट ये जो एक्सपेंसेस है वो कैपिटल भी नहीं है. सर क्या बोलना चाहता हूं मैं? यही बोलना चाहता हूं दैट दीज एक्सपेंसेस आर नॉट रेवेन्यू इन नेचर फॉर द सिंपल रीजन after incurring these expenses, you just don't get the benefit in 1 year, but you can enjoy the benefit over a period of 2 to 3 years or 3 to 5 years. Sir, if it is more than 1 year, तो आप ही ने चिल्ला चिल्ला के बोला 5 मिनट पहले, then any expenditure which is gives you benefit over a period of time is a capital expenditure. 1 minute, this cannot be treated as capital expenditure because you are not acquiring, creating, installing any asset, nor it is the expenditure incurred for increasing the life of the asset or productive capacity of the asset. यानी ये capital expenditure नहीं हो सकता, और वो capital expenditure नहीं है, इसीलिए वो revenue expenditure है. If it's a revenue expenditure, generally the benefit is restricted only up to 12 months, that is 1 year. But here the benefit is not restricted up to 1 year, 12 months, but benefit will be for 3 to 5 years. That's why it is called deferred revenue expenditure. अब उसको 1 साल में राइट ऑफ नहीं कर सकते. That's why it is called what? Deferred revenue expenditure. Examples: your heavy advertisement for launching a new product, expense or training of employees, which will the training will last long for 4 or 5 years. Not regular normal training. This is extraordinary training. Let us say you have changed your system, you are going from A system to B system, and that will now go on for next 50 years or so. So you need to get your employees trained by not normal day-to-day training, specific training. So आपको benefit एक ही साल में नहीं मिलेगा. Preliminary expenses to form a new company, any formation expenses, expense on the issue of shares and debentures, that is also part of formation expenses. So basically, यहाँ आपको समझना है that such expenditure cannot be capital because it has got nothing to do with cost of the asset. But this expenditure will not be treated as purely revenue, because you don't get the benefit only in just 12 months, but you get the benefit over a period of time. That is 3 to 5 years. That's why it is called deferred revenue expenditure. So one part of this will be written off in the current year, which will go to trading profit loss account. And the other part which is not written off will appear in balance sheet asset side. That's why it is called fictitious assets. So if I say deferred revenue expenditure and fictitious assets, don't get confused. It is one and the same. So expenditure can be divided into capital revenue, and revenue को हमको याद रखना पड़ेगा for the deferred revenue. ठीक छे? ठीक छे? Okay. Capital and revenue receipts. Capital receipts are those receipts which are non-recurring in nature and they affect long-term standing of the company. Long-term standing of the company यानी क्या? ओनर ने कैपिटल इंट्रोड्यूस किया, हमने लोन टेक ओवर किया, हमने इन्वेस्टमेंट्स को सेल किया, हमने शेयर्स को इशू किया, डिबेंचर्स को इशू किया, हमने एसेट्स को बेचा. ये सब लॉन्ग टर्म स्टैंडिंग को अफेक्ट करे. ठीक है. Revenue receipts. Now, revenue receipt is nothing but your day-to-day income. This has got nothing to do with your long term, but this has got everything to do with the current year. So, commission received, interest received, amount collected from debtors, amount received against bills receivable, income received, subsidy received from government, blah blah blah. So, basically, these are recurring in nature, and capital receipts are non-recurring in nature. Now, एक small point है, but वो काफी confuse कर रहा है. Every time when you pay, you may not call it as expenditure. And there are certain payments that you make which are known as not expenditure, but they are known as exclusively payments. And those payments also can be categorized into capital payments and revenue payments. So, sir, capital payment in a they are non-recurring in nature and they obviously affect long-term standing of the company. यानी क्या? Loans repaid. If you repay loan, it's not an expenditure. You're paying money, right? Vitamin is going out. Purchase of investments. Capital withdrawn by the proprietor. Redemption of shares and debentures. Redemption यानी repay. आपने shares को repay कर दिया. आपने debentures को repay कर दिया. Payment हो रहा है. It's not going to affect short term. It's going to affect long term. Revenue payments. These are recurring in nature and they affect only short term. What do you mean by that? You have paid, you have honored bills payable. You have paid money to creditors. Now, when you honored bills payable, it's not an expenditure. No? When you purchase goods, it's a revenue expenditure. Similarly, when you make payments to creditors, vitamin E is going out, but now it is not an expenditure. When you have purchased goods on credit, it's an expenditure. Last year's outstanding expenses paid in the current year. If you're paying in the current year for current year, it's a revenue expenditure. But you're paying in the current year for last year, it is not my revenue expenditure of current year. Come on, boss. But it's a payment. Not affecting long term, but affecting short term. So it is called revenue. कुछ तो समझो ना या नहीं समझ. ओके. नाउ ये बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि हमने जब कैपिटल रिसीट्स का बात किया था तभी हमने सेल ऑफ फिक्स एसेट को कंसिडर किया, लेकिन उसको थोड़ा और डिटेल में समझना. You know it very well that there is original cost attached to the fixed asset. Then there is written down value, book value, worth of the fixed asset as on date of sale that is attached. And of course, then the selling price of the asset. अब आपको क्या समझना है? In the first case, in the first situation, my cost is 10,000, written down value is only 4,000 and the selling price is 2,500. So you better understand one thing. I have suffered a loss of 1,500 because written down value is 4,000. So the thumb rule is any receipt up to book value of the asset sold is a capital receipt. So what is the book value of the machine in my example? 4,000. It has been sold for how much? 2,500. So 2,500 will be treated as capital receipt. यहां पे तो कोई प्रॉफिट हुआ ही नहीं है, यहां पे लॉस हुआ है. So that 1,500 is a revenue loss. Are you able to understand what I am saying? आपकी सेलिंग प्राइस सेम एज बुक वैल्यू हो सकती है, आपकी सेलिंग प्राइस मोर देन बुक वैल्यू हो सकती है, आपकी सेलिंग प्राइस बोलो लेस देन बुक वैल्यू हो सकती है. दिस वाज द एग्जांपल ऑफ लेस देन. सेकंड एग्जांपल, cost is 10,000, written down value is 4,000, selling price is 6,500. So it is more than the written down. Up to book value, 4,000 is a capital receipt. The rest, that is 2,500 difference, is not this time loss, but it's a profit, but it's a revenue profit. So it will be credited to profit loss account currently. यहाँ पे selling price is more than the book value. Now, this is something out of the world. Cost is 10,000, return value is 4,000, and you received how much? 11,000. जब इस तरह की abnormal situation आएगी, तो please concentrate. Up to book value is a capital receipt. So 4,000 was the written down value. So 4,000 तक का out of 11,000 is a capital receipt. Now you made a profit of 7,000 in all because 4,000 is the book value, written down value, and you sold it for 11,000. So you made a profit of 7,000. Out of that, 1,000 will be treated as capital profit. Anything above, over and above cost, what you have received, is not day-to-day profit. So it is capital profit. Rest is a revenue. So I repeat again. Cost was 10,000, book value was 4,000, selling price is 11,000. Out of 11,000, सबसे पहले 4,000 is a capital receipt. बचा कितना 7,000, वो है overall profit. Out of this overall profit, amount which is more than cost, selling price में से जो amount cost से भी ज्यादा है, that will be treated as capital profit and not profit of the day-to-day nature. So it will not be credited to profit loss account of current. And the rest is a revenue. That is 6,000. That's all. As far as allocation of expenses and allocation of income is concerned, apart from that, I have discussed what is capital payment, revenue payment, and then I have addressed sale of fixed assets under different situations. I think that's more than enough for you to survive in the exams. They are always going to give short note type of question. They may explain, they may ask you to explain what is capital expenditure, revenue expenditure, deferred revenue expenditure. More than that, they will give you questions and they will decide to conclude whether it is capital or revenue with justification. So, if you know this, you will just read and apply. Right? There are certain questions which are quite tricky. If they say factory painting, now factory painting, whitewashing of factory painting, if done regularly every year, it's a revenue expenditure. But if it is done after 3 to 5 years because you're using better quality paint, better quality material, blah blah blah, then it will not be recurring in nature. So then it will be deferred revenue expenditure. So you have to be prepared for it. Mentally be prepared. Correct? That's all what I wish to discuss in this chapter. I see you in future with more chapters to go. Bye.